This German X-Wing drone just impressed the US Army. That's right, the US Army just put a German attack drone through a live exercise in Lithuania. It looks like an X-Wing fighter.
Red 5 standing by.
It hits like a loitering munition, and the soldiers used it for reconnaissance, which is a little like using Darth Vader's Star Destroyer to deliver DoorDash. Hello there. Funny, but also the single most revealing thing that happened the entire exercise. Because in the drone war, the best drone is not always the one built for the mission. Sometimes it's just the one still flying after the enemy switches on the jammers. Hey friends, Wes here, and I know Helsing, the maker of the X-Wing drone, is watching this video, and I'm just gonna say that I think you guys missed a big opportunity in naming the HX-2. You could have called it the Skywalker. I know Disney's lawyers can be slightly aggressive, so call it the Skywalker in German. What's that? Oh, I'm being told that Skywalker in German is just Skywalker because it's a surname. Okay, then just do it literally. What's Walker in the sky? Wanderer am Himmel? Yeah, HX-2 sounds better. Probes war sichtlich eine gute Entscheidung, yeah? With the HX-2. Last year, the Helsing story was mostly a promise. A German defense startup said it could mass produce an AI strike drone for Ukraine, fly it through Russian jamming, let it pick out targets with its own onboard brain, and finally hand Europe an answer to Russia's Lancet. That sounded like a miracle weapon, and I said so at the time. Promises are cheap. What's expensive is putting the thing in front of actual soldiers and watching what they do with it. Well, that has been happening in Ukraine and now with the US Army in Lithuania. And soldiers are wonderfully disrespectful to the marketing brochure. They use what works, they ignore what doesn't, and what these soldiers did in Lithuania with the HX-2 is strange enough to be worth the next 10 minutes of your life. Quick recap. Project Flytrap was a US Army-led multinational counter-drone exercise this spring at the Pabradė training area in Lithuania, right on NATO's eastern frontier. Pabradė isn't a random patch of dirt. It sits next to the exact geography where Russian electronic warfare would show up uninvited in any crisis. British and Australian troops were in the mix. So was Helsing, which showed up, in the words of the Army's own CTO, in force with their hardware and software engineers. The number, first reported by Axios, across the exercise, 17 HX-2 drones launched, 15 hits, 2 near misses. Let's call it an 88% hit rate if you like round numbers. 88% in the strike drone world. That number is quite good. And somewhere in the Army's footage, General Christopher Donahue, the man who runs the US Army Europe and Africa, got photographed leaning over an HX-2 transport box like a guy inspecting a tool he's thinking about buying. That detail tells you more than the hit rate does. So, what is this thing? Well, the HX-2 is a software-defined precision strike drone that looks, in my opinion, suspiciously like an X-Wing fighter from Star Wars. Did somebody say Star Wars? That's right, I never miss an opportunity to break out the lightsaber in a YouTube video. This Helsing HX-2 is electrically powered, weighing around 12 kilograms with that X-Wing layout and a top speed near 220 kilometers per hour. Helsing says it reaches out to about 100 kilometers and carries swappable payloads, including shaped charges for armor and anti-structure work. A 12-kilo drone isn't gonna gut a main battle tank the way a heavy anti-tank missile would, but a shaped charge that size is plenty against a lightly armored vehicle, or an artillery piece, or radar, or an air defense system, and the soft logistics targets that keep an army breathing. So this is not a quadcopter with a grenade zip-tied to it by a Russian guy named Oleg behind a tree line. It is a purpose-built munition meant to survive long enough to find and hit something valuable. And here's the part that matters. Helsing says the onboard AI lets the HX-2 search for, re-identify, and engage its target even after it loses signal. I see you have constructed a new lightsaber. Helsing also has a human staying in the loop for the kill decision. He handed a mission and an area, and it flies there. Its computer vision picks out the target types it's hunting, and it keeps working when the radio link turns to static. It's like a poor man's tomahawk. This isn't Luke doing trench runs on Space Wizard vibes. It's what happens when a loitering munition and a software engineer have a very interesting German baby. Imagine a hidden drone wall of these things across Estonia or Finland. When Russia eventually crosses the border, the drone wall wakes up and takes off from their hidden storage containers and starts hunting Russian armor on their own. It's not concrete and razor wire anymore, folks. This is the future of European defense. Hell, even Canada could have a drone wall along its US border in case Trump starts talking about the 51st state again. Now here's what made me sit up. A strike drone is the expensive, specialized tool. Reconnaissance is the cheap drone's job. Okay, not all reconnaissance drones are cheap, but in my mind, the strike drones are the money makers. So why did soldiers in Flytrap, in that exercise in Lithuania, reach for the precision munition to do the cheap drones' work? That's right, soldiers used the HX-2 for reconnaissance. Using the HX-2 for recon is like using a Ferrari to deliver a pizza. It's not what the machine is for. But if every delivery scooter bursts into flames the second it leaves the driveway, well, the Ferrari starts making a lot of sense. The Army CTO confirmed the behavior. The HX-2 came in pegged as a one-way attack and counter drone system. The soldiers started using it as a reconnaissance platform and a loitering scout because its computer vision could find and track targets and because it kept flying under jamming. I have intel from soldiers on the ground who verified to me that the reason the HX-2 was used for recon is because their dedicated recon drones that were there, made by other companies, failed to withstand the electronic warfare. The HX-2 could, so the soldiers defaulted to the thing that still worked. When the spectrum turns hostile, missions die. So when I see soldiers abandon their assigned recon drones and grab a strike munition instead, I don't read confusion. I read the spectrum picking the winner. So the plain English version of the EW problem is this. A basic FPV drone is a beautiful, terrifying weapon right up until the enemy flips on the electronic warfare, then the link drops, the video dies, the GPS lies, and your expensive flying grenade becomes a confused videography tool. Autonomy is the answer everyone is racing toward, and it's what the HX-2 is selling. AI that flies the thing home through a jammer is the product. Now let's talk hit rate, because this is the part nobody in the industry likes to say out loud. That 88% in Lithuania is an exercise number. Step back to the wider market. The dirty secret of the strike drone business is that advertised capability and real hit rate are not the same animal. A lot of these systems are quietly satisfied hitting a quarter of their targets, 25%, and a firm handshake. The serious end of this market reportedly lands somewhere north of 60% under real conditions. 1 drone in 4 versus better than 1 in 2. In a war built on cheap mass, that's the difference between a weapon and a budget line somebody has to defend at a committee. And the price makes the gap matter more. Defense Express reports the HX-2 runs around 17,000 euros per drone, roughly half of the claimed price of a Russian Lancet. Treat that as reported, not gospel, because unit cost swings hard on payload and volume, but the order of magnitude is the point. The HX-2 lives in the crowded, decisive middle tier of modern war. Smarter than a garage-built FPV, far cheaper than a guided missile, and theoretically buildable in the numbers that actually matter. Because the unglamorous truth is that drones are consumables now. We have to treat them like ammunition. And none of this happens without Ukraine, and credit where credit is due, Russia taught the world what a mass-produced loitering munition does when you build it by the thousands. The Lancet became a real problem. Ukraine then taught the harder lesson, which is what happens when you don't have enough of your own. Helsing's entire reason for existing is to close that gap before Europe relearns it the expensive way. The company announced in early 2025 it would produce 6,000 HX-2 drones for Ukraine, delivering several hundred a month, with the system sitting in Ukraine's central ordering catalog. The drone American soldiers tested in Lithuania is the same family, already in war. And here's what we don't know. Lithuania is not the Donbas. A training range is not a Russian artillery battery hiding under camouflage netting behind 3 layers of jamming. An 88% hit rate is a very good audition, but it's not a battlefield guarantee. However, I happen to know from my sources that Ukraine wants more HX-2s. Helsing themselves have also said, according to Axios, that 6 Ukrainian units and 1 frontline unit have been asking for over 1,000 more HX-2s. Treat that as the company's rebuttal. So Ukraine is still the stage where the critics have real artillery and a vote. But the doctrine lesson is bigger than 1 German drone. In a jammed battlefield, roles stop being fixed. Recon drones fail. Strike drones scout. The wall between scout and the shooter is coming down. And the right question stopped being, what does this drone do? The new question is, what can it still do when everything around it starts failing? The future drone isn't a flying camera or a flying grenade. It's a node in a battlefield network that has to keep working while everyone within 50 kilometers is trying to murder the network. So here's the lesson from Flytrap, and it has nothing to do with the army finding a cool German X-Wing. The drone war is maturing. The first phase was improvisation. Commercial quadcopters and garage hacks duct taped together under fire. The phase we're entering is industrialized autonomy, built in factories designed to produce thousands. And in that world, the drone that survives gets the mission. Job titles are a peacetime luxury. A scout becomes a shooter becomes a scout, and some Russian vehicle crew somewhere in the near future is gonna look up, see a thing that absolutely should not be there, and discover that the Force is very much not with them. That's it for today, my friends. If this kind of analysis is useful to you, do me a favor, hit subscribe. It is the best free way to support what it is I do right here. Once we hit 200,000 subscribers, I will go and get me a new Star Wars tattoo. You have my word on that. You can also join the channel as a member for about $3 a month and help keep the lights on. So hit that subscribe so the algorithm stops treating you like a stranger. And by the way, I write longer pieces on Medium and Substack. QR code on the screen, or just wesodonald.com, where that long form analysis lives. And as always, may the Force be with you. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.